Hey, welcome to Hooper's Radar. Today we are going to be discussing the biggest question for every Western Conference NBA team heading into next season. I did every East team in my last video, so feel free to check that out. With that said, let's get into it. The first team we are going to be starting with is the Los Angeles Lakers, and my biggest question to them is, can Anthony Davis continue to stay healthy, and can LeBron continue to still be this elite as the number one option? We all know Anthony Davis was pretty healthy for the most part this last season, playing 56 games in the regular season and all 16 in the playoffs, but can he do that again this upcoming season? Only time will tell, but AD's injury history does concern me. LeBron is still very elite and is playing at an all-NBA level, but we saw some moments where he gassed out in the playoffs, and I'd be lying if I said it doesn't concern me a bit. LeBron is only getting older. We don't really know how long he has left being this elite. Next team is the Golden State Warriors, and my question for them is, can they get away with winning games despite lacking some depth? Obviously, depth isn't very important in the playoffs because rotations shorten, but in terms of the regular season, depth helps you win games when your main guys are injured or resting, and the Warriors don't have much depth that can hold the fort down if Curry needs to rest. Chris Paul is a good player, but he's not Curry, and I don't think it's fair to call their young guys off the bench depth because the second unit was just terrible at times this past season, even with Jordan Poole in it. The Warriors don't really have that good of a bench, and it could be a concern for them at times in the regular season. For the Denver Nuggets, can they repeat as NBA champions? There really aren't many questions you can ask to a team that just won a championship and managed to keep that same roster minus one player. The only question you can ask a team that accomplished the most valuable goal in basketball is if they can do it again, and I'll leave it at that. For the Los Angeles Clippers, can Paul George and Kawhi Leonard stay healthy? This team solely depends on the health of PG and Kawhi, and that's been shown countless times during the regular season and playoffs when the Clippers can't win games without them. The most success they've had in the playoffs is when they are both healthy, or at least one of them. There isn't much to say aside from the fact that they both need to be more available and healthy if the Clippers want to have more playoff success and have a chance at winning a championship. Next team is the Phoenix Suns, and my question to them is, can they win a championship with a mediocre defense? Yes, I know they acquired multiple wings and defensive players this offseason that they hope will address the defensive issue they had last season, but the truth is that we don't know for sure if the impact and minutes those guys get will be enough to improve this team's previously terrible defense. I just don't trust a team that is led by a guy who believes offense wins championships. Real ones know defense wins championships. For the New Orleans Pelicans, can Zion Williamson stay healthy? When Zion Williamson is healthy, he's been a lead and one of the best NBA players, but the fact is that he isn't healthy very often, and it's costed his team a missed playoff appearance and a lack of team success. We all saw the Pelicans as a top seed earlier in the season when Zion was healthy, and as soon as he got hurt, the Pelicans fell off a cliff and lost a crucial play-in game without him. He's just vital to the success of the Pelicans, and he needs to figure out a way to stay healthy. For the Dallas Mavericks, what will be different this season from last season? As we know, the Mavericks missed the playoffs last season despite having Kyrie and Luka on their team, and they're basically running it back with a couple of new players who do address their defensive issues, but I want to see these new guys be impactful on that end before I get my hopes up. At the end of the day, the Mavericks are led by Luka and Kyrie, who aren't good defenders, and that could be a problem. For the Sacramento Kings, can Keegan Murray take a big leap as a shot creator this season? From the crazy Summer League performances to red-hot shooting performances, I feel like Keegan with proper time can become the true second option on this Kings team and be that star-level shot creator next to Fox. I think for this Kings team to have the most playoff success, their second option can't be Sabonis or Malik Monk, but instead a player with the potential of Keegan Murray. And Keegan Murray could definitely be that guy if he takes a big leap this season. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, can Karl-Anthony Towns continue to get away with being mediocre when it matters most? We've all seen Cat disappear at times when the game is on the line or in the playoffs. He disappeared a couple times this last season during that first round Nuggets series, and it just seemed like Anthony Edwards was out there fighting by himself. There's a reason Anthony Edwards became the number one option so quickly. It's because Cat is passive and has tendencies of disappearing in the playoffs. I'm surprised the Timberwolves haven't considered many options to move him because he just came up short many times. Hopefully he figures it out though. For the Memphis Grizzlies, can they stay afloat in the standings for the 25 games that Ja Morant is out? We've seen them win many games and even go positive without Ja Morant, but they managed to do that with great performances from Tyus Jones, and he's gone now. Yes, Marcus Smart is also very good, but I believe it will look a little different, and I'm just wondering if they can continue to be very good without Ja Morant. Just because they've done it in the past multiple times doesn't mean they can continue to do it. Things could go wrong, and I'm very curious to see how this Grizzly team performs in the first 25 games in the season with no Ja Morant. The next team is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and my question to them is, can Chet Holmgren be the final piece that will make them a certified playoff team? We all know Chet Holmgren missed all of last season with that foot injury he got in a Pro-Am summer game. The Thunder still managed to be very competitive without him thanks to SGA, J-Dub, and Giddey, and they almost made the playoffs but came up short after they lost their second play-in game to the Timberwolves. A lot of people didn't expect the Thunder to be so competitive and not only eliminate the Pelicans, but almost make the playoffs. This is a very talented young team that will be in the playoffs very soon, and Chet Holmgren could be the definitive key player with his versatile skill set that takes his team to the next level. For the Utah Jazz, can they make the playoffs? The Utah Jazz are in a weird spot because they haven't chose to rebuild since they still have some win-now players, but have a mix of young guys on their team too. We saw how they managed to be a top seed at the beginning of the season, but then fell to the middle of the pack and out of play-in contention later. They honestly have a competitive roster that can make a push for the playoffs as an 8th seed, and I'm assuming that that's their goal since they still have Jordan Clarkson and Lauri Markkanen on their team who are looking to be competitive. They just have a nice mix of young talent with some middle-aged players, and making the playoffs or play-in seems like the best goal for them. For the San Antonio Spurs, can Victor Wembanyama live up to the hype and make the Spurs competitive? Victor came in as a generational prospect this year and got drafted by the Spurs in hope of restoring the franchise back to playoff contention. He has a lot of weight on his shoulders as the Spurs are looking for him to be the franchise star that will make them competitive again. Victor has all the tools to be elite on both ends of the floor, but there are many questions about his skinny, weak frame and how that will affect his availability. Only time will tell if he can bring the Spurs back to relevancy and be the generational player the Spurs drafted him to be. Last but not least, we have the Portland Trail Blazers, and my question to them is, what is their direction as a team? Now that Damian Lillard is leaving, it doesn't seem like this team's plans to be any sort of competitive, but at the same time, they still have Jeremy Grant and Jusuf Nurkic on the roster and don't seem to have any plan to move them. While the rest of this team is very young, Jeremy is 29 and Nurkic is 28. With Damian Lillard gone, they don't really fit the timeline of this team anymore considering the young core of Simon, Sharp, and Scoot are in their early 20s. Seeing this young trio next to win-now players like Grant and Nurkic make me question the direction of this team. I don't exactly know what the Blazers are doing right now, but hopefully they address it soon. The last team is the Houston Rockets, and my question to them is, with all their new acquisitions, can they make the playoffs? The Houston Rockets are one of the worst teams in the NBA last season, sitting at the bottom of the West with their inefficient play and lack of chemistry. Over the offseason, they managed to make some big changes to their team in hopes of becoming much more competitive and winning games. They drafted some incredibly talented rookies in Cam Whitmore and Amen Thompson. They went out and got who they believe will implement winning environment in coach Ime Udoka. They then acquired 2 win-now players in Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, who they believe will set the standard. After seeing everything the Rockets did this offseason to improve their team, it only makes sense to me that they did this because they want to make the playoffs. No team would just make these changes just to remain out of the playoffs. Their clear goal this upcoming season is to make the playoffs, and I'm sure Ime Udoka definitely agrees. Well, that's my biggest question for every Western Conference NBA team. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe to stay on the radar for all things basketball.